Oh my gosh, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tweet about the show live right here. It's time for part 2 of the daily on gaining thing edges in TvP. That's right, we learned a thing or two in part 1 about little cute adjustments we're seeing MMA make based upon what he's seeing. And right here, we are once again in what would seem like a dire situation, but we still have to ask ourselves, what edge do we have? What conclusions can we make about this Protoss player based upon everything that we've seen? Well, if he's committed a lot to expensive units, Immortals and Stalkers, he almost certainly has close to no other tech. Plus we can click on his units and see that there's no upgrades. So if we return back to the base of Patience, we are likely not going to be seeing a lot of tech. Okay, cool. So what does that mean? Well, for one, he's going to be struggling a lot with just big amounts of Marines. He doesn't have Colossus yet. He doesn't have armor upgrades yet. And he doesn't have Storm yet. I would actually imagine that the thing that he must do then is the Colossus. He's going to be in pretty bloody bad waters. Also, what's another thing we can exploit? He's not going to be good at holding off drops. He'll likely have to build a lot of Stalkers should we try to do that sort of drop play. And third, all his units are here. What's a good way to get those units to go away? To attack with a medevac drop. So, well, in general, if a Protoss is behind on tech in some way, and when I say behind on tech, I mean behind on the usual Protoss tech. Normally a Protoss would have an upgrade done now, or he'd have something like normally you'd have an upgrade done now, or you'd have some sort of Colossus or anything like that. But since he doesn't, medevac drops will almost always be amazing in situations like this. And the fact that they come soon is important, but ultra fast is not so important. I love that MMA just does these very careful sweeps just outside the front of his base. Nothing too expansive, leaves back a sort of emergency widow mine, just in case. And because there's no orbital command to land and do a follow-up, I think this is the correct play, to just pull and go. Should that orbital command have stayed alive, MMA should just land and play as normal. So I don't really know why this medevac went so far deep in the main base. But remember what I was talking about with defending against drops? What can Patience truly do in this situation versus drops? He doesn't have something nice like a Colossus to be able to defend the front, and, you know, a Stalker and some warpins, some Zealots to be able to defend the back. Sure, Stalker warpins in the back are a reasonable way to deal with medevac drops in general. But the fact that MMA has caused just a little bit of this threat, suddenly Patience has to really figure out exactly where to position everything. So MMA just goes wherever his opponent's weakest, even being smart and leaving this Zealot here. So this was one of the more interesting moments of the game. Remember that Widow Mine that we got? Yeah, getting all the value. Force fields, not really going to be terribly relevant if there's not a lot of Zealots, and even then, without any other auxiliary upgrades, I mean, like, what really can a Protoss player hope to do in this sort of position? And yeah, when the Colossus comes out, we have a little bit of struggle moments. But this is where I want to play the make-believe game, the what-if game. Look at the position that MMA is in right now. After he accidentally lost himself, his front, accidentally lost himself, his orbital command, and then just did a simple pushback. He's nearly won the game. All he did is ask, well, what's the weakness of my opponent? What can he not really have? Oh, well, the Colossus. Does he have anything else that's good against Marines? Well, not really. Look, there's not even a ton of Marauders being produced. Even back home, we see that the Tech Lab Barracks is producing Marines. Marines are the biggest threat right now. Very, very slick little play. Only a single medevac remains. MMA has lost just a few too many SCVs to have enough gas to get himself the medevac, so he has a lot of low health fingers. Still manages to pick off the Colossus. And in just a little bit, MMA will kind of like just barely lose the game. Now, if MMA had successfully deflected, or successfully gotten up this bunker, he'd have been totally fine. Totally super unbelievably fine. But I come back to this battle because I want to talk about all the things that we got early. Obviously, we got these medevacs early, but remember Stim? We got Stim started very early. We got this +1 started very early. Combat Shield, because Stim finished so early, means that it too gets to start early. So all these things mean that this snapback attack can happen very quickly on. There's +1 done. Combat Shield's about to be done. And all these tools allow for a really strong answer from MMA. So here's the scary part. I'm going to close the game. Please, please don't crash. Please, I beg of you. One time, I'm going to move the mouse around. Okay. The next game we want is Derelict Watcher. I'm loading it. Okay. For any of you who've never seen the Game Hard interface, it's like super sexy. Sarah, please let me know if the sound is out. See, here's what happens when you join the game. One person assigns who the players are, and they get to pick their teams and their team logos. There's Acer, Zubu. Dreamhack opened 2013, then it does this little animation, and then the game begins, and then all of a sudden you have the Azubu logos there. Oh, God, it's so sexy. Alright, hope it's working. Down in the bottom left, we have Kind Sir MMA. Now, this is game 2. MMA will eventually win this series, and we've gotten some hints in the first game as to why MMA is such a consistent performer in this matchup, when people love to say, oh, well, the Protoss, he Deathball Templar Colossus metagame, so balance David Kim patch notes nerf. God, some collection of those words come out of angry Terrans' mouths without them directing their eyes to MMA. Ooh. Ooh. Every time I see a Colossus, I'm like, David, God, David. My inability to discipline myself to study for answers is the fault of David. David, why don't you nerf, rebalance, fix, buff, overpower my race so that way I can fairly win 80% of the time, David? And then David Kim's like, there's really no statistical evidence to support that. And someone's like, God! Ugh! Now, that's not to say that StarCraft 2 is perfectly balanced by any means. But that is to say that when someone whines like that, it's hilarious. Are we all on the same page? Oh, excellent. Okay, so we talked about the idea of build versus adjustment. Everything up to now is a build, because MMA is simply following the script. The only thing he has seen is approbe. So he gets himself down the command center, he follows himself up with the reactor, and he's going to move himself up the ramp, and what do you know? First thing he spots, a zealot. We also see that there's no dudes in gas. Last game, MMA was pretty swift to send all these dudes back into gas, and we see somewhat of a similar look. Dudes quickly going back into gas, but what's this other guy doing? Oh, I see. A rather early bunker. Great. Bunker before barracks. If you want to find a barracks, there is none. Okay, so here comes our friendly Reaper. There's going to be the enemy Mothership Core, who's going to do her mothershiply things and try to repel said Reaper. It's going to run away, it's going to heal, and then it's going to go head back for the scout. So we're already seeing, wow, delayed second barracks. This is a little bit later than the last game. Vespene Geyser, also going to be a little bit later than last game, because this damned invasive bunker Not just, keep in mind, the bunker itself is 100 minerals. An SCV mines 40 minerals a minute. So this means the SCV's time off mining has also taken away about 50 to 60 minerals. So a whole barracks can't be built early on thanks to this jackhole bunker. This bunker hole. Alright, so MMA is being relatively responsable with his reaper trying to find his way in. And look at these Marines. Rallied directly into the bunker, not marching themselves forward onto the map. The Reaper will march its way in. Already note we have some valuable information. No Stalker, no Sentry. Just as important as what you can see is what you don't see. There's no Stalker, no bunker. Of course there's not a bunker, it's Protoss. There's no Stalker, there's no Sentry. So MMA is going to get in here. He's going to spot the Stargate. Spot us. And all the things. We have the Tech Lab coming up. We have the Refinery a little bit later. Stim's going to be a little bit later. Just a little bit. Does he get that out of there? What a boss. Oh, that's right. It gets killed off. Alright, so let's maths together. How long does Stim take? How long does Stim take? A little under 3 minutes. We're at 6 minutes. 6 minutes plus 3 minutes is 9 minutes. Back off by 10 is at 8:50. We got our Stim 20 or so seconds faster in the last game. 20 seconds doesn't sound like a ton, but the point of this game, in fact, the point of this daily, is not about big, huge, wicked plays. It's about the thin margins. MMA, who skipped the bunker, got the earlier barracks, and the earlier tech lab, and the earlier refinery, got Stim just about 20 seconds earlier. And that 20-second earlier Stim met the Protoss right as that scary immortal push crept into his base. In this game, MMA saw a Zealot, marched his way in there. He's delayed this Stim, but that's okay, because there is no scary immortal push coming. And if a player did decide to go Zealot in the opening, that would hurt the Protoss' economy just a little bit too. It's about these relative thin differences. So now that MMA has crept his way in, located a Stargate, let's see how he adjusts. MMA, continue to build the workers, the Marines, and all those sorts of things. One thing that I love about watching a pro play is that they don't shit their pants, proverbially speaking. What I love to see about what MMA's up to at this point is he saw a Stargate and he's not like, I have to stop everything, get 8 turrets. It's everything is smooth sailing right now. Look, he has enough money to do things. Well, for like a few seconds, but he's about to build another round of SCVs and Marines. Do-do-do-do-do. Build monies. No, he's not. He's not going to do anything like that. Ignore everything I said. Factory and engineering bay go down. SCV production continues. Marine production is going to start back. There we go. MMA has known for a long time. I kind of lied because he delayed these Marines for like 10 seconds. But he didn't lose his mind in instantly engineering bay. Here is the little adjustments that we will see him make. We have a fully loaded bunker, but look at this. MMA, she has a couple Marines over here, a couple Marines over here, sort of like a 5 and 6 sort of thing. Just spreads himself across these areas. So we've seen how the bunker came first and why that came first, but now we're seeing the Marines doing very different things than last game. They're not here marching their way all the way up to try to deal some damage. No, they're just chilling at the backside. Oh yeah. Trying to deal some damage, and as many of you know, if an Oracle ever arrives in the back of your base, you die and lose the game immediately. And MMA has thrown it off like a breeze. He's throwing down a single missile turret at the north side of his base, rejoining his troops together. Great. Now we can see these little differences. This starport is a little bit later than last game. He won't really be able to get 9-minute medevacs, but he'll get a little bit later. And that's okay. He's in good shape. What else do we know about our heroic oracle-ing friend? Well, if he did go for this oracle, all the rest of his tech is likely delayed. Our friendly Protoss player is probably going to not be taking a third base very fast. Ooh, did a little burpy thing and it felt real nice. Always feels good to burp, especially after you've had chicken tacos. Because a little bit of that flavor rejoins your mouth. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. In a kind of gross member of the capital kind of way. Okay. So after the Oracle gets repelled, we know that he's delayed on his Templar tech or his Colossus tech, whatever that may be. Medevacs are always a good way to punish a player who's behind on tech. It makes him regret his life of avoiding the Colossus and Templar. So, just shoving. I love seeing the 90-second delay reaction, and what I've just got done talking about is really good. Oh, it is so good. So the Oracle continues to be unable to do much but reveal people who have shot him in the face. There! Over there! They're the ones! Ah! So again, not 9-minute medevacs, but a smidgy didgeridoo later. A little pick-offity-boffity-boo. Now, what is a good selection to do against a player who's fairly incapacitated in terms of his ability to safely secure third base? If you said apply pressure and expand, I like your style. Why expand? Because he has to stay defensive. He doesn't really have any other tool. Most Protosses are going to be struggling quite a shitload to get themselves up a third. Now you might be saying, the Patience is getting a third. Wait a minute, I'm confused. So, when you're at, let me drop my pencil, and then let me tell you that it was actually a pen. Then, let me tell you what I'm talking about. As much as it's easy to talk about things discreetly, he either can get a third or he can't. It's often a little bit more in-betweeny than that. So what you will often see is when I make a statement like, he can't safely get a third, that doesn't mean that MMA can walk up and just kill the third. Sometimes it means that, but more often it means that our Protoss player is going to struggle in some way as a result of having so much floor space to cover. So already we see that there's a very low observer count. Here's one, here's another. It's not the 4, 5, 6 observers that we really tend to see players roll with. So plus this medevac's coming in. Oh no, it's going to run into Blunk. No big deal. MMA is going to be very conservative with these drops. Watch the way that he exploits it, just simply pulling away. Continuing to try to force expensive warpins. Now notice that MMA dropped and just re-landed again. This is so symbolic of exploiting what my opponent is weakest at. He's weakest at having the basic stuff to hold me off. Why? Because he went for this frickin' thing. He can't have a lot of Colossus and a lot of upgrades and a lot of gateway units with Blink being done. So look at this. MMA is proudly charging into the back of a base. And it's very easy to say something like, oh my god, Blink, super strong, oh, it killed off the medevac. Look at what's happening on the back end. Third command center is done. There's more medevac stuffs en route. The unit count is still tiny. This is everything that Protoss has except for these this paltry set of units. Even the Zealot isn't anywhere near the base. This is the entire ground army of the Protoss. So certainly MMA didn't just waltz up and win, but we got the chance to see what his edge is. If you have too many tech options, then I can exploit you with a drop. If you stayed focused and say only built gateway units, then you're more vulnerable to a frontal attack. As an example, look at the last game that we saw. Patience stayed focused and built a lot of gateways to do an early attack, and then when he retreated, he basically only had gateway units to defend an attack, and then he almost died. So cool. We see good friend MMA properly identifying that his opponent is going for a variety of tech paths, such as by seeing the Colossus and seeing the Blink, seeing the army there, and I mean, even in the face of Blink, you have to have a lot of units for the Blink to be really effective. There's one Blink. Now, I wish I could show the units lost tab. I can't. I wish I could show like a workers lost tab or something like that. But in the meantime, MMA has essentially rounded out his barracks composition. This is kind of like the usual mixture that you go for, which is the 5 barracks, the starport, as you get the 3rd base up. Now, MMA has not done anything too notable in terms of upgrades. He's just followed up with a pretty straightforward 1-1. He's going to be following up with a pretty straightforward 2-2. But another little play that we see MMA utilize a ton that's unbelievably effective is to apply pressure with these multi-pronged drops, and then force you to build a certain kind of defense, like the Colossus, and then just build the unit that kills that really well. We should see a Stargate pop up soon, or Starport pop up soon. Does he not do it this game? Maybe I'm confusing it with the other game. I thought he did it here. No matter. Oh, that's right. I remember now. Okay. We're gonna pause here because it's the end of part 2. And what we've seen thus far is we saw how MMA cleaned up in game 1, nearly winning a game that had some fairly avoidable errors just by straight up following up on his on really the clear weakness of his opponent. And then we saw in this second game that MMA did the same opening structure and then made these pretty dramatic tweaks if you looked very carefully for them. If you're going through it at ×8 speed, you're going to miss out on the fact that, you know, bunkers being skipped, the Marines are being positioned differently, but we actually get to see exactly how MMA was doing those things in the opening, even leading up to this aggressive dropping in the back to punish Patience for having gone Oracle and tried to do a little bit too much. So when we come back, we're going to watch MMA finish out this game. We're going to take questions and all this. Stay tuned on break.